the bass. Woo! Woo! Yeah!
Hello and welcome once again to Mappa Monday. This is once again coming on both the Leashing Barguests and Fish Not Fish channels, though I think we're coming to the end of the period where that's going to be happening, so make sure you are following Leashing Barguests if you want to catch these streams in future. Today we're going to carry on from last week, where I spent some time talking about dungeon mapping, the philosophy behind dungeon mapping, and some of the techniques of dungeon mapping, and then started mapping a dungeon. So today I'm just going to dive into that dungeon, and we'll carry on with mapping that. See if we can come up with something that I can post on my coffee at the end of the stream for people to download and use in their own games. And that's about it, really. So let's start mapping a dungeon. First thing I want to do, I think, is I want to decide what to do with this natural cavern section. At the moment, it's self-contained, it's got a couple of dead ends. I don't really want them to be dead ends, I want them to go somewhere. Whether they go to the same place or different places, I'm not sure yet. Maybe they go to different places. I might possibly have this lower left tunnel lead to another small complex, maybe another cave with something constructed in the cave rather than another hollowed out section. This is something I've done before on maps and it looks quite good, is you have effectively a small building constructed within a larger cave underground. Much easier to do, of course, than actually hollowing out the rock. So let's think about doing that. So for starters, we are going to need, well, for starters, I think the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hide the floor, and then I'm going to break this wall. So let's take our break tool, select the wall that we are breaking, and then we select points to break from. So I think I drew it going this way round, so I will put my start point here and my end point up here. Yeah, that worked. I was trying to remember the way around in which I drew the wall, because I didn't want it to break in the opposite direction, if you see what I mean, which would have been, break all the way around. That would have been a tad awkward, I feel. So let's have the floor back so we can see what we're doing, and we will go back to our default cave to map out a new section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up here, come across to the bottom, and then down as this opens up into another cave area, which we're going to make quite large. I won't bother with a lot of tunnels leading round to this. I'm just going to put this big cave area in here and take it from there. So that's looking pretty good. I think I'll send this new cave to the back, so that in terms of the way the floors blend, the original floor is on top in case that of any issues. Then it's going to need some rock walls, so let's go with our wall rock. And again, I've used this before, but I'll go through the menu again to show where it comes from. It's under the tools menu. Yep, tools, snaps, and I want to snap to the end point, which is F5, but it's tools, snaps. Unfortunately, that's behind the Mappa Monday logo. But yeah, the tools menu, snaps off that, and there's a whole bunch of options on there, which I'm going to use endpoint to attach to the end of the wall. So I'm just continuing that wall essentially. You can also choose midpoint, center, intersection of, distance along, nearest point on, parallel to, perpendicular to, and like as options on that snap, along with a few other sort of related tools on that menu. But we're going with endpoint, which is an F5 if you want to use the hotkey for it. To select the wall that I'm attaching to. Let's zoom in a bit. I don't think I've connected to the right thing there, so I'm going to cancel that and try again. So F5. I think that's selecting the floor at the moment. So annoyingly, what I'm going to probably have to do is hide the floor again. F5 to select the wall. Then I need to bring the floor back in because I want to trace that floor. And I'm going to be able to see it, trace it, obviously. Yeah, when I lean forward like that, I disappear off the camera, don't I? That's a tad awkward. I'll try not to lean forward too much because viewing the top of my head seems a bit strange. I'm going to do this initial section manually rather than trace it to avoid it causing trouble with that tight corner. So I'm just going to bring that round this first bit, which unfortunately is now it's right in the center of the screen. So just go around that corner, then I'm hitting T for trace, selecting the cave, picking my first point, which is going to be just after the point I've manually drawn to. Then I'll jump all the way over to the far side, select my next point, so it'll go all the way around the outside, even though it's off screen, that doesn't matter, it goes all the way around the outside, draws to the next point I selected, and then I will manually bring that in and use F5 for an endpoint connection. So I'm going to hide the floor while I do that, so that I can be sure I'm connecting to the wall, not the floor underneath it. Right, now let's bring the floors back in, let it redraw, see how that's looking. And that's looking pretty good. So I don't actually want to repeat that last command. I pressed that by mistake. So there we go, we've got a bit of a decent sized cave there that we can put possibly more than one building, in fact, in this. They're not going to be big buildings, obviously, but they're going to be significant. Hey, I really need to start looking at chat more often. Hello, Wenchkin. Welcome aboard. So, yeah, so I've started trying to stream on Mondays again for mapping streams. Doing these, at the moment, I'm dual streaming on Fish Not Fish and Leashing Barguests. I notice you're on Leashing Barguests, so good to know that you've found that one okay. Because I'm going to be stopping doing the using the Fish Not Fish for tabletop streams soon. I'm doing pretty well, to be honest. Feeling a lot better since I cut down on the amount of hours I do at work. So got myself 2 extra days a week off, one of which is today, so I can stream. Went to a convention last weekend in Canterbury with Druttercup. We spent some time playing a couple of board games and poking around at things. Picked up some stuff, spent too much money. And tomorrow I'm running, in fact, Traveller for the first time. I've been a fan of Traveller for the setting as much of the system since, I dread to think. I know I picked up the Mega Traveller box set back in the day, but never ran it. And I think this is about 4 editions of Traveller that I now own. But I'm going to be running some Mongoose Traveller. First effort of that will be tomorrow. Not streaming it, but hopefully some later games will get streamed. We're looking at doing an episodic, kind of loose episodic campaign with it. So some scenarios may be streamed and others not, depending on who's playing and what's involved at any given time. Going back to my dungeon, let's look at some floors. It's going to be our starting point for this. Is going to be floors. So let's go with the cobble floor for this. Make sure we've got the snap to grid turned on, and then we will give ourselves a floor over here. So that marks out our starting point for where we are putting a building into this cave. It's always a little weird to me that you don't see this kind of structure more often. It makes perfect sense to me to actually build something within a cave. It starts getting a little bit odd, I suppose. You know, things like, do you bother to put a roof on it? Because if it's underground, why does it need a roof? But at the same time, if you've got a large cave, enough for a lot of people, it starts giving people some privacy and or some defensive capability. I didn't leave a hole for a door there. I'll decide where to put the door in a moment. But I'm going to put, I think, a second building, which I'll put over here. And again, we'll give that a brick wall down the outside. And I think in this case, I am just going to leave a 5-foot gap there, and I can just put a door straight into that gap, which makes life a little quicker rather than chopping it. The only downside to that is I've got to no, of course it's snapping wrong, so I won't do that. I know what I'll do. Solve this nice and easily. I'll put a double door. Then no, the double door snap. I don't like the double door snap. I'm going to have to move the point on that wall so that the door fits in properly. It's my own fault for forgetting how the snap on this worked. So node edit, select my wall. I'm now moving that last point on the wall. So I just move it down to close the wall up, cancel the tool, bring the floor back, and now I've got a complete wall there on the outside, and I can put my door in anywhere I want it. So there or there, essentially. Or I could even put it in up at the top there. Let's put it up at the top there. And we'll put the door to the other building down there. In fact, let's get a little bit sneaky with this other building, shall we? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put another wall in, and I'm going to put it across the middle there to divide that up. Hello, why did that wall not break properly? That should have broken there. I'm going to have to manually break the wall by the looks of it. So again, I'll turn the floor off so I can see what I'm doing while I do it. Turn the snap off, because the snap will not go to the right place where I want this break to be. I am breaking this wall, and I'm starting my break here where the door is, and I'm ending my break at the other end of the door. And that did not do anything. That's very odd. Why have you not broken that? That is very odd indeed. That should have broken. Now remove the door for the moment. Oops, just accidentally zoomed. It's not what I meant to do. So remove the door, and then let's just try putting it back in. Turn the snap back on. And see if that will break the wall now. Doesn't look like it has to me. No, didn't think it had. I don't know why this wall isn't breaking. It's very strange. It's not doing it automatically, and it doesn't seem to be doing it with the break tool either. I'll try, however, putting it somewhere else. See if there's just an odd glitch on the way the software is working here. What if I were to put my door there instead? Nope, that hasn't made any difference. Ah, that broke. So if I redraw that. Yeah, there we go. So we'll get rid of the door that didn't break the wall. Problem is, I don't really like that door down there. It's not a good position for it. So although I got it to work, I'm not really happy with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that door, and I'm going to have another go and see whether the change wrought by successfully breaking the wall down there will let me break it over where I actually want to. And the answer is yes, it will. So now I've got a break that I don't need down there, so I can just use the node edit, select that, and bring it all the way across. Thanks to the snap, it's actually overlapping the original bit of wall, but that doesn't matter. They'll just merge essentially into a single wall. And now, when I bring the floors back in, I've got my two buildings, but at the moment there's no way in to this top section here. So what I am going to do, I don't have a specific symbol for it on this. Why is that an A door? I have no idea what an A door represents. But what I want to do is I'm going to put a secret door. I'm actually going to put two secret doors. So what I'll do is I'm going to add an additional walls sheet. Afternoon Chrono, welcome aboard. So let's add walls GM, and we'll copy everything from the walls sheet so that it has all the same effects. But I can turn it on and off separately from the normal walls sheet. So what I then want to do is I want to give myself a secret door symbol. So I'm just going to pick a nice red. Red's a good color in my opinion for secret doors. And I'm just going to put a letter S, which I will actually I'm going to change the font on that because that was looking italic. Yeah, the italic's turned on, so I'll turn off the italic. I'm not going to change the size on the font itself. I'm going to change the size after the fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this, which is Control to scale, and then just move to make it bigger. Right, and there we go. And then I'm going to put that there. Then I'm going to copy it. So I can select it. There we go. And I'm going to copy it over to here. But then I'm also going to rotate that, because I'll give it the rotate reference point in the middle, rotate it by 90 degrees. Then it's in line with the wall and looks that little bit better. But those are on the text layer, which is not really where I want them to be. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to select both of them. This might be awkward because I'm going to select, yeah, that selected the wall instead. Simple way of doing this. I'm going to go to the text sheet and I'm going to hide everything else, because that way I can use the bounding box and select both of them quickly and easily and move both of them to the walls GM sheet. So if I refresh now, there should be nothing here because there's nothing on the text sheet. Show everything, and back they are, and they're treated as walls now. It was actually wall symbols that I wanted to duplicate, not walls, but that's okay. I'll put them on the wall sheet and treat them as walls for the moment, because they actually do look quite good that way. What I probably should have done, as I said, is symbols wall. I should have done a GM version of that. I think what I probably need to do is take phenylalanine, because that was a silly mistake I should not have made. And I didn't think to take one of these before the stream. I don't always, depends how I'm feeling really. But I'm not sleeping well lately. I'm having difficulty getting my sleep patterns back into sync for nighttime after getting up during the day to go to a convention. I'll just blank the camera out for a second. Don't really need people to. I have a difficulty taking pills. Nobody needs to see me shoving a pill down my throat. There we go. So I'm going to leave this on the wall sheet, which does look quite good. Because a GM wall sheet is a slightly odd thing, if you think about it. Because the idea of a wall that's secret and the GM doesn't know, unless that wall is invisible in some way or concealed in some way, that it doesn't really work. So what I'll do is I'll take my GM wall sheet and I will move it down to come after the wall symbols. And then I'll just rename it to symbols wall GM. And then we'll decide what we're going to give it in terms of effects. The symbols wall sheet has no effects whatsoever. It's no effect on these doors, which I'm not very happy about, to be honest. So actually, let's edit that. Let's take all of the symbols from the wall sheets and put them on symbols wall. So now, wall symbols, in this instance, it's going to be doors. I mean, if I want to do something like torches on the walls, things like that, they're going to need a separate sheet because they'll use different effects. But things like doors will have the same effects as the wall, so they'll have the same bevels, the same wall shadow, and they should look rather better. They should fit rather better with the walls done that way. At the moment, those doors look exactly the same. So I'm going to check whether they're actually on the right sheet, and I'm going to do that by hiding everything except the symbols wall sheet. Make sure there's some doors on it. There are no doors on it. Don't know where it's put the doors, therefore, when it drew them. That's a slightly odd thing. It should really have put them on symbols wall, I would have said, because they're symbols, and they're symbols that are, interact with the wall, that break that wall. They might be on symbols flat, because they certainly do seem to be flat. So what I'm going to do, I'll bring everything back, and then I will just select these doors, and I will move them to the symbols wall sheet. Now they get shadows and they get a bevel, and they actually look rather nicer. So if that's the way it's been drawing the doors, let's move across to the doors we drew over here, which again, they're all flat and boring doors. Let's make sure of what we're doing here. I'm going to hide everything, and then I'm going to reveal all the symbol sheets. So whatever sheet it's placed these symbols on, they'll all appear. So they look like they're just fairly standard symbols, because they've got a drop shadow, but it's not a huge drop shadow, so they're not on the flat sheet. They must be just on the standard sheet. The stairs can stay where they are, but the others I'm going to move. So we'll change properties, and we'll just draw a bounding box to select all the doors at once, the advantage of hiding everything else. And we'll move them all to the symbols wall sheet. Now I redraw that, they get a much bigger shadow because they've got the wall shadow rather than just the standard drop shadow. And they've got that bit of beveling, although it doesn't show up hugely on these because they're the wrong type of... they're symbols rather than polygons. If I drew a poly on that sheet, it would have the same bevel as the wall. We'll bring all of the other layers, all of the other sheets back. And yeah, I think those doors look much better that way than they did originally. So, where have we got to? We've now got our strange little buildings down here in the cave. And we've got a section of one of the buildings that is accessible only through secret doors. One from the outside, one from the inside of the building. It's going to be fairly obvious to any savvy group of player characters that they haven't found that there must be secret doors there, because the building is bigger than the room inside. But that's okay, because it gives the players something to think about, and it lets them feel a bit clever when they find the way through eventually. always nice to give people a chance to feel clever. Now obviously the GM export of this map would have those symbols on, and for the standard version I would just hide the symbol, the GM wall symbols, and suddenly the secret doors aren't there. So we can export a GM map that shows us where the secret walls are, and we can export a player map, the secret doors, and we can export a player map that doesn't, and that obviously is the one that we'd be exporting to bring into our VTT for playing this. For now, we'll bring all of those GM symbols back in case we want to do more of them, because we want to be able to see what we're drawing. And I notice we actually have, I said before that I'd need a separate sheet for things like torches, because they would need different effects to the wall symbols. And we actually do have a symbols torches sheet. Looking at it, it has no symbols, no effects on it whatsoever. So there's no drop shadow on the torches for some reason. It might be nice if I put any torches in to play about with that and see if, for example, I can create a lighting effect. Because what you could do is you could put a glow on everything on that sheet, a transparent glow that would then give you a lighting effect around anything you placed on it. You wouldn't need to place specific lighting effects on any torches. Anything you put on the torches sheet would do that. But we haven't got any torches at the moment, so I'm not going to put that in right now. It's just something that can be done. So I've got my little inhabited, so to speak, portion of the cave now. The other dead end tunnel I'm going to open up and send into natural caves, probably with a I'll make it a possible connection to the Underdark. I think I'll make it a bit vague. If I put in a section that has, I might mimic what I did over in the constructed section with the water. If I put a section that has a wall but a way past the wall, such as water that goes beyond the wall. Let's just bring back the original room that we did that in, so I can show what I'm talking about. So here, obviously, the wall encloses the water there, but we know that water is a part of the larger underwater pool. So as a GM, we can say to ourselves, okay, well, the players have an opportunity potentially to dive into the water, submerge themselves, then go underneath the wall and swim into the cave beyond. If we don't want that cave to be accessible in our game, in our dungeon, we can also just say there's grating at the bottom of the wall that lets the water through but doesn't let the players through, unless they've got shrinking magic or a buzzsaw. We can do the same over the other side. We can have a pool with rock walls, so that you would need to swim through a submerged tunnel in order to get into the next section. And by doing that, we give the GM a choice. They never need to tell the players about that subterranean section. I could really do without Windows constantly popping up notifications every time VLC starts playing another song, since they pop up on stream. But there we go. Maybe it'll stop doing that if I don't have VLC minimized. The reason I keep looking that way is I've got a 3D print going, and this is my second attempt at doing it. The first time, one of the supports broke, so I knew it wasn't going to print the thing that was going to be supporting when it got up to it, and I had to cancel it halfway through. It actually worked out quite well. It was an earth elemental. So what I did is, when I cancelled the print, I cleaned it up a little bit, took the supports off, and it had printed the legs up to the bottom of the torso. So I've then just glued a flat bit of plastic onto the top of that and converted the bottom end of that earth elemental into a sort of an altar type arrangement. I'll paint it up stone on the bottom and with probably a metallic colour for the top, so it looks like a metal plate that's been mounted on top of a a rock support. If you say so, Chrono. But I keep looking across, slightly paranoid, in case I have to cancel the print again. That's why I keep glancing that way. So let's come back to our case in point here, where we are drawing more caves. We'll zoom out a little bit. We will again hide the floor for now, because that makes breaking the wall easier. Two vast and trunkless legs of stone. And we will break this wall. We'll turn the snap off while we break it. We'll break it here, because there's an awkward corner just after that point. And I'd rather break before the awkward corner than after it. And then we're going to go to we'll bring back our wall or floors, obviously. And we'll go to our cave tool and start drawing again. So again, I'm going to overlap the existing cave slightly. Then I'll come out kind of gently, I think, from the bit of tunnel that we've got. But then come around into a larger area relatively quickly. I think what I'll do, this is a technique, I suppose. I'm going to do a large area of floor rather than draw a lot of small caves, similar to the way I drew the ones that we've already got. So I'm going to draw one big area, and then I am going to fill it in, essentially, by putting lumps of stone to divide it up into other caves. So I can shape it by putting more stuff in between. I'll go there. There we go. And then again, I'm going to put an outer wall by using the snap tool. So first thing, temporarily hide the floor, so that I'm snapping to the right thing. Select my rock wall. F5 to snap to the end point of this wall here. Then bring the floors back in, so I can see where I'm going. And where I'm going is I'm going to manually bring it round as far as here. Then I'm going to trace from there. So I'm tracing the relatively easy part. And I will trace all the way around. Now at this point, the cursor gets very sluggish, because every time I move the cursor, it's redrawing a line that is tracing all the way around that big fractally drawn cave. So the sooner I draw that section, the quicker I will get back to something a little bit more conveniently usable. So we'll bring that up here. Again, we will now hide the floor. F5 for snap to the end point. That's not the end point, so that went wrong, annoyingly. Right, so I've got a weird little glitch there. That's caused by the fractal shape being too complex. So what I need to do is I need to come in here and start deleting nodes until this weird glitch ceases to be a thing. So I select a node. I'll select a node here, and I will move down to where it's happening and start deleting points until I've got past there and smoothed out that section of wall. And by doing so, I will solve the problem. There we go. That's that dealt with. All good. The other point that I didn't think was connecting particularly well was over here. Yeah, thought that didn't look quite right. So again, I'm going to use the node tool, and I'm going to start deleting some nodes from one wall. try and bring them a bit closer together. Let's see where we are now. And then I think if I can select the end node of that wall and just bring it round over here. Yeah, that didn't work. That's the one I needed to move. There we go. And let's delete a couple of nodes leading into it. How does that look now? Not great. I want to move the node on this wall, so I'll click further along the wall to be sure that I'm moving the right nodes on the right wall. Shift it up so that it lines up a little bit better, and that should work quite nicely. Honestly, most people are not going to be looking at it closely enough to really see whether there is a problem there or not, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I could spend a lot longer trying to get that happy, but one of the things that I like to say when doing these Mappa Monday streams is this is not about drawing a perfect map, this is about drawing a good enough map. All the maps drawn by a game master just need to be good enough for their game. It's different standards, obviously, if you are drawing maps commercially, you know, for a product that you're going to put out there into the world. But for the maps for your game, they only need to be good enough for you and your players. Nobody else's standards are at all important to it. So just cleaning up this section here. Again, it's just a little bit too complex. The fractal has just put too many points in here. I'm just smoothing the wall out a bit so that the effects don't mess it up. And that looks a bit better. I could do the same down there, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to call that probably good enough. Let's put the floors back in. So now I've got a fairly big open cave area over there, and I'm going to pick this corner for where I'm going to interact with what may or may not be the rest of the Underdark or what have you. So we will go with some water, and we will go with we'll go with curved water, because this is not, we don't have a construction here, or will we? Do we have a fractal water anywhere in here? We don't on this particular sheet, so I'll stick with the curved then. So a couple of tricks with using curved is I like to draw multiple points at corners, because it will map the curve between the points. So if you put some points fairly close together, then it presents the curve from then just actually chopping out a chunk of where you wanted it to be. And then you can have nice smooth curves elsewhere, but where it interacts with the corners of the map, it shouldn't look too bad. So, like so. So I'll want some rock walls in here as well. So we'll take our rock wall and we will start it here. Actually, no, I'm going to cancel that tool. I'm going to do something different. I am going to use the fractalize tool. I'll keep the default settings, I won't muck about with them. And I'm going to select my bit of water and I'm going to fractalize it. Now, having done that, I've got a node inserted there that I will need to remove so that it's flat up against the wall, the edge of the map again. And I'm still not desperately happy. That's very sharp edged now. And it's not great, if I'm honest. So I'm just going to hit it again. And I'm going to hit it again. Right. Now once again I need to remove these unwanted nodes. Because I want this to be flat up against the wall. Finding the right nodes to delete, there we go. And then again, I want to delete that node, that node. That should be good enough. The frame, there's an invisible frame essentially around this this map. It's got a white border, and that border is on top. So anything that slightly overlaps the edge of the map, you don't have to draw to the edge of the map, you can draw past the edge of the map, and then the border will hide that by drawing just a white border over the top of it. So those should now, that fractalization should make this look a little bit better when I use the trace tool to trace the edge of the water. And I'm going to trace it, I'm not tracing it all the way around this time, I'm just tracing it up to the edge of the map. And then we'll do the same over here. So I'll trace that and bring it up to the edge of the map. So that what we've got now is we've got a flooded cavern in the corner of our map. If, as a game master, you want, when using this map, to connect to a larger underground area, you can let the players swim underneath the rock wall at the edge of the cavern. If, on the other hand, you would rather not connect it to anything else, then you don't need to. This is a very convenient looking rock wall here. So another thing that I could do is I could put some more floor over the top of this. And the way I would do that, I'd go back to my default cave tool and I would then trace this edge, so where this rock wall is. And as I say, the mouse pointer the cursor gets very sluggish when you're doing this because it's trying to map all these nodes at once. It is easier to do obviously with the effects turned off, but I always work with the effects turned on, and I'm too lazy, or too stupid, depending on how you look at it, to bother turning them off just to do this bit. So we'll come up here. I think we'll manually follow the wall up there for a bit, and then we can just put in a lump coming down here, down to there, connect it, and when we redraw, that goes over the top of the water. In case people want to use this side, we've now got a choice. We can leave that as it is and have kind of like a rock beach on the other side of this rock wall, but then again this rock wall looks quite unnatural like that. If on the other hand I go back to my walls tool and I draw a rock wall tracing this new bit of floor that I've drawn all the way up to the far end here, connecting to the rock wall on that side. Now, we could, in theory, we could, instead of using the same standard cave, we could use the background, the same texture as the background when drawing that, so that it looks like they are two separate things that are connected together. We could remove the bits of wall in between as well, so that it just looks like two separate caves. But I think I'm fine with it as it is at the moment. Oh, look at that. Thank you, AutoMod. We like AutoMod. AutoMod's very useful for getting rid of nasty little bots trying to sell viewers. Okay, so what we've now got is we've got a section in the corner there that allows the GM to connect via this flooded cave to another map if they want to. Or if they don't want to, they can just use this map self-contained and completely ignore that water section in the corner. And that's, for this kind of map, I think that's quite important, because this isn't a map for a specific adventure. I haven't got, a dungeon written that I need a map for. This is a map I'm creating so that I've got one if I need to write an adventure, or that anyone else can use if they need to write an adventure, and they just need a map to place it on. So it needs to be a little bit versatile in that respect. And with that versatility in mind, with a little bit more work, I could even muck about up at the corner there where I've put that connection. I could even arrange it so there's a smaller cave. That section that is inside the rock walls up there could be made as a separate cave yet, and put something like portal to the elemental plane of water. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, actually. That would work. The other alternative is you could attach it to an underground river, maybe. You could have an interesting, as a story-based scenario that uses a map, you could have an interesting situation where at the end of the day, the player characters can't get back out the front way and have to dive under the water, hope it connects to somewhere, get swept along by the river. And it's the equivalent of the knocked unconscious, robbed, stripped and sold into slavery routine. You wake up on the banks of the river somewhere after half drowning and lost half of your gear, left behind any heavy loot and treasure. Perfect for a GM who thinks their players are getting too big for their boots and need to be knocked down a peg or two. Not that that would ever happen, of course. Okay, let's get some more. Let's do some more with this cave. So, cave dirt dark texture is the same one being used for the background, I'm pretty certain. Which means that anything I draw with this will just look like I've chopped a hole in this section of floor. So then if I put a wall around that, again, we'll use our rock wall. We'll pick a starting point. We'll start in this corner. And then we will trace from there round to not quite our starting point, so that we can starting in a bad place, essentially, is what I'm saying here. Is I made a mistake. I'm going to zoom in, because to make this join up okay, I'm actually going to need to come out to the side and then back in, because otherwise there's going to be an awkward join. So I needed to fake up a halfway decent join there, but I could do that without too much trouble. And there we go. As I said, rather than try and draw individual caves or complex shapes, far easier just to draw the big outline and then put that in, drawing chunks, to take chunks out of it by drawing the wall, the background texture over the top. And that's really what I should have done over here where the water connects. I should have used that texture instead of the default texture to draw that bit of cave there. If I really want to, I'm going to save this now first, but if I really want to, I can still go back and I can change that. So there's a couple of ways I can do this. Let's hide all my walls. So I can redraw, use the same tool and draw this in again in that tool, or the other thing I can potentially do is I can select change properties on that and I can look for the fill style. Now this means me knowing which fill style that dirt floor is, and it's got to be, it's in use on this map, so it's got to be in here. So it's going to be possibly one of the dirt brown dark, but which one I'm not so sure. Let's try that one, and yeah, we got it right first time. How's that? So if I bring my walls back in, I fixed that problem of that being an odd bit of cave, and I can fix it even more if I break the walls. So to do that, I'm going to need to hide the floors, because I don't want to accidentally break the floors instead. And I can select the things I want to break, and I'll break from there down to there, and then again we'll do it here and we'll break from there down to there. And when I redraw that and bring the floors back in, now my 2 bits of water are completely separated on the map, and it's entirely up to the GM at that point. Nobody can even look at the map and say, oh, that's obviously one thing, we want to find the way through. Even if they can see that, if you haven't masked it, say, in your VTT, you can still say that's there, and either there is a way through or there isn't a way through. If there is one, it's not marked on the map, and it doesn't need to be marked on the map either. It doesn't matter. It just needs the GM to say, well, okay, make me a swimming test. See whether we can find one. So that is an improvement over the way I originally drew it. Just demonstrates the fact that you don't need to get everything right first time. To me, this kind of map drawing is an organic process. I'm riffing off any ideas that come into my head, seeing what comes out, and sometimes that means that yes, I'm going to go back and I'm going to change something, and that really doesn't matter. It makes no difference at all to the final outcome and whether I like the map at the end of the day. It's just about what comes into my head as I'm drawing it, and when I find something that I like, and that then stays, and eventually I get a finished map. And when I've got that finished map, it doesn't matter what the process was that got me to it. It only matters that the end result is something that I like and I want to use. Let's keep working on this section at the moment. Actually, I think I'm going to put another, just for good measure. Oh, we did have a fractal water. It's under cave, not water though. So there we go. Let's put some water into this. Now, I'm going to be a bit sneaky here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to slightly disguise the potential way, watery way out at that end, because I am going to flood this end of the cave. Don't want to move too far. That's probably good enough. Now, what that will do is that is going to hide the pieces that I've just put, but I can fix that, because what I can do is I can move this back. Unfortunately, there isn't a back one, forward one tool. Or if there is, there's no button for it, and I don't know what the command is to activate it. The easiest way to do this, of course, would be to move that backwards one until it's underneath the 2 pieces that I want to put over the top of it. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to hide the walls. In fact, no, I'm not even going to hide the walls, because it doesn't matter if I select the walls as well. I'm going to select a move to front tool, and I'm going to select, the walls will tell me where to click those 2 pieces. Even though I can't see them, I can still select them, and the walls tell me where they are. So that brings them in front of the water, and now we've just got water. We've got a lake or pool. We'll say pool, because it's probably not that deep at this end, inside the cave. All works out quite nicely to my mind. It's a different water effect to the one I've used over there, unfortunately. So I may need to change the texture on that one to match. I actually rather like that water effect that I've used, but because it doesn't match the other one, I'm better off having them match. But, having said that, I am better off having them matched, but which one do I want to match them to? Do I want to change the cave to that darker blue, or do I want to change that to the lighter blue that the cave is using? And I think, honestly, I want to change the lighter blue. I prefer that darker one. So I am going to hide my walls again so that I can see what I'm selecting. And I am going to select that bit of water there, and I'm going to come over and also select the one that I'm using over here. And again, I'll change the fill style, and I will just look for the darker blue water, which must be that one. There we go. Bring our walls back in, and now we've got all the water on the map now matches again. Works out quite nicely, I think. Apart from, there's one piece that doesn't, which I'm going to have to do independently, which is this bit here. Under some circumstances, I could argue in favour of leaving that. If, for example, I put a light source in this room, I can say that that is lighter because it's lit and the others are not lit, and therefore the water is darker. Not because there's any difference in the water, but because there's a difference in the environment. So that brings me now to the question of, do I want to light that room? Or do I want to change the water? It's a decision. It's a fairly easy decision, in as much as it doesn't significantly change anything. And the fix is easy, because it's either I do a simple click and change, or I add a couple of torch symbols in. And it's a pretty simple choice to make. I could even decide on both. What I could do is duplicate that piece of water in the darker blue, but on a separate layer, and then do the same, put the torches in on a separate layer, and that way you can just hide the layer you don't want to use and export two versions of the map, one with the darker, one with the lighter, if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that in this instance. I am, in fact, just going to look at my wall symbols and see whether I have any torches. And if the answer is yes, and the answer is yes, then let's change to my symbols torches sheet. And I can put a couple of, in D&D terms, we'll call these essentially torches of ever burning. There we go. And for good measure, let's play around with that idea that we had earlier about, can we add a glow to these torches? So we'll give them a nice sort of orangey, yellowy glow, yellowier than that color. And to begin with, we'll use map units for this, I think, and we'll have the blur radius not too much. Map units are, we're dealing in feet for this, so let's say a blur radius of 10 feet, shall we? And we will apply that and see what it does. Unfortunately, my dialogue is in the way, so I can't really see. It's quite subtle, so we'll edit it. We'll try giving it more strength. It's currently 12.5. Let's put it up to 25%. Apply that. Still not really enough. What if I put it to 75% and really, really have it hit out? That's way too much, obviously. So we'll apply that at 33%. It's still not quite enough. Maybe 50. 50's not looking bad. Now, it does unfortunately glow behind the wall. There's not a huge amount I can do about that immediately. There are potential solutions to this, but they're all going to be a bit awkward. They're effectively going to come down to putting things on a layer above the glow, or moving the symbols torches layer down. So if, for example, I move it, ironically to move it down I've got to move it up. If I move it up below the walls, now they're far less obvious. And I've got a floors mask layer here. Without looking at the PDF mapping guide for this style, I'm not sure what the floors mask is for. But one thing it might be for is it might be so that, for example, I can, in fact, mask out that area where the glow is going through the wall. But I'm just going to say that that's actually not significant enough to really be worth worrying about. I'm just going to leave that as it is now. I'm happy with that level of glow in the room. Justifies the lighter water. And depending on what VTT it's being used with, in Fantasy Grounds or, in fact, in any of the big three, really, Fantasy Grounds, Foundry, or Roll20, all of them have lighting effects. With Roll20, they're subscription-based, but the lighting effects exist in all of them. So I could bung a light source on each of those lamps for good measure and have that glow match up with what's happening in-game on the VTT. Work out probably quite nicely. Meanwhile, this needs to connect to more dungeon. We've got empty space over here to put more dungeon into. Again, I'm going to give GMs a choice at this point, because I am going to break a bit of wall over here. So we'll hide our floors, because that water counts as a floor. Even though there is a separate water sheet, they're drawn as floors, so they've gone straight onto the floor sheet. I could move them to the water sheet if I wanted to. I don't know whether there's any purpose for doing so. There might be if it's got some additional texturization or something, or effects on that sheet, which you can do to improve the look of the water, obviously. And I'm going to break this wall, and I'm going to break it over here. I'm going to break it about that far. I'm going to bring our floors back in. There aren't any effects on the water sheet, so there's no real reason to move them to being water instead. But what I am now going to do here is I'm going to go back to my default cave. I'm going to start here. I'm going to trace the water rather than worry about how the overlap's going to work. I'm just going to trace it along the edge of the water instead. And then I'm going to give myself another cave over here, which comes in off the other end of the pool. So the reason I said I'm giving the GM a choice, it's F5 to snap to the end of that bit of wall, move it in slightly, and then manually bring it round to the cave edge before I trace it from that point onwards, because I want that to actually work, essentially. And again, at this end, I'm going to come in slightly so that I'm coming in, so where it joins the existing cave wall wants to be coming in as flat as I can get it, and I didn't do it very well. My starting point was okay, but my ending point was pretty terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the floor, because I just accidentally tried to edit the water instead. So I'm going to start by moving the end of the bit of wall I'm connecting to. Then I'm going to delete some points from... I don't want to be over there, I want to be over here. Got to be a bit careful not to delete the wrong points. Oh yeah, there's a lot of points, a lot of nodes making up that line there, and I essentially want to delete most of them. So this is getting a bit risky now, because when you get to the end of a line like this, it'll move and start deleting points from the other end. So I need to check the other end, because I think I did accidentally delete a node or two from the other end by mistake. So I'll need to check that and repair any damage I did. But I may not have done. I may have got away with it. And once I have deleted these nodes, I can bring the floor back in so I can see what I'm doing. let's move that node up to there for now. Bring in the floor. And then I'll go back to the node edit tool. But node edit has, in addition, there are tools for adding nodes and deleting nodes, but the node edit tool is the only one you will ever need. Because when you're in node edit, not only can you move the nodes, you can also add and delete nodes as well. So I've been deleting just using the delete key. Now I'm going to insert a new node using the insert key, and I can move that node around that I'm inserting. I insert another one. Try and get that lined up reasonably well. And that doesn't work too badly. I am, however, going to move a node here, because although that's traced the water, it's not traced it brilliantly to my mind, unless I accidentally deleted a node on there, which I don't think I did. You've got to be zoomed in quite a way to see where it's wrong, but I still want to be a bit careful with it. So let's move. Which am I moving there? Hang on, let's find out by doing this. Yeah, I'm moving the. That's fine. Yeah, that'll work. And it looks like I've got away with that possible node deletion, probably because there are so many nodes in that section that I really could do with trimming some of them out anyway to make the effect look nicer. But prettying it up for, say, a commercial release, I would want to go through and do that. But I'm not prettying it up for a commercial release. I am making a map for my own personal use and to be put on my website for free use by anybody who watches me, as a thank you for watching the streams, really. There are a couple of points I want to clean up still. Down here we've got a point where the effects have gone wafty because too many nodes in one place. Again, I'm accidentally doing the floor, so we'll hide the floor and then try again. And let's just come down here and delete a bunch of these nodes that make this awkward corner. And just smooth it out a bit so that it doesn't look quite so weird and spiky. That should look fine. Bring the floor back in to make sure that it's not too far. You know, deleting the nodes hasn't moved it too far away from the floor that it's supposed to be edging. There's one node there of the floor that I can maybe get rid of because it's poking out past the wall now. Use the node delete tool. To actually use the node edit tool because there's more than one node that really could be got rid of here, isn't there? So let's delete a small number of nodes around there just to bring the floor back in line and inside the line of the wall. And that does the job nicely. As you can see, I'm zooming right in to change that, so that could be ignored. On the good enough basis that I was talking about earlier, you can say that is quite good enough, I do not need to edit that any further. And if you say it's good enough, it is good enough, because that's the way this works. Let's put a pillar of rock in the middle of this cave to make it more interesting. So again, rock wall will start here. We'll trace the wall from by our starting point to by our starting point. And then I'm going to zoom in to finish it off so that I can see where my final point needs to actually be, and it needs to be about there. There we go. That doesn't look bad at all. So yeah, we've got another little cave there. What I was saying earlier about giving the GM a choice again. if nobody swims through into that cave, they're never going to find that section, that additional cave section. I could really push the boat out at this point and go with a, you decide how complex this actually is. So what I could do to do that, I could put another constructed section coming off that cave. So again, it's a place where in order to get to this construction, you've got to swim through water. Looks cool, makes for an interesting environment, but you do have to start thinking, why? How did they make it? Did they actually bring all of the the builders through? Did they swim through this cave to get to it? An alternative, of course, is to use it as a back route. So, say I put another constructed section down here. Zoom in on it. If I build another constructed section over here, where this tunnel, where this corridor doesn't go anywhere at the moment, currently it's a bit awkward because it's got to, I'm going to have to move this wall, remove this wall or shrink this wall, because at the moment it's going to run straight into a cave wall, because I forgot I hadn't drawn that yet when I put the cave in. So if I have another constructed section over here, but I block it off with a secret door, say, I can have it connect to that cave. So how was it constructed? They came through the secret door to construct it. It doesn't even have to be a secret door. It could just be a locked door that there's no key for and that is too strong for the player characters to break through. And that swim might be the only way they can get into the locked section over this side that is where they really need to be. I quite like that idea, so I think I'm going to do that idea. So first things first, hide the floors again, and our old friend node edit lets us move this wall. We'll turn the snap back on and we'll bring it down to here. Then we are going to insert a new node on this wall. And the reason we're doing that is apparently because we want to crash the entire program. Yeah. Spot man who didn't save recently as well. That's awkward. Let's see whether Campaign Cartographer gave me an autosave drawing. Oh, it's got me the wrong autosave drawing. That does not help. Yeah. Okay, so unfortunately I've just lost a whole bunch of work. That's rather awkward. I've opened too many windows now as well. I've reopened a gaming window when I already had one open. That's the map I was working on. And as we can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've done since. Moral of the story, save more often. Not used to it crashing on me like that. So, yeah, honestly, it's yeah, it's my fault, but I'm going to excuse myself to some extent because it's normally a pretty reliable program, and I'm just I could count the number of times it's done that to me without running out of fingers, and I've been using this software since DOS. Not this specific software, but the Campaign Cartographer series since DOS. CC Pro, no, CC, CC2, CC Pro, CC3, CC3 Plus. So 5 versions of the software, which when you consider that it's going back to the to the mid 90s, actually just shows that they don't, they're in it for good software. They're not in it to keep selling you new updates. Only 5 versions of the software in all that time, essentially. So what was I doing? I was hiding the walls so that I can once again change the texture on this bit of cave here, because I want to make it the dirt background. Then we want to bring the walls back in, and as we did before, we will break this wall Now I'm going to hide the floors because I don't want to break the floor, I want to break the wall. We'll break that wall and we'll break it here and we'll break it down to here. I could have, because that doesn't actually end, that doesn't go anywhere else, I didn't actually have to use a break on that. I could have just used a cut off. There's a different tool underneath the break tool, which just trims the line. I could have just trimmed it to where it intersects there. In fact, there is a trim to intersection tool specifically that I could have used, but I didn't think to do it because I'm a bit of a fool. Let's use it on the other end though. We're trimming that entity and we're trimming it to that entity, and that automatically trims it to that. Now the downside with that is that now we've not got a particularly neat connection, but I can node edit to fix that. Dynamic edit, there we go. If I bring it out to here, that will actually look rather better. Looks like a more natural corner. And then we bring our floors back in. And there we go, we've got our water down there. So, now, this is where ADHD really comes in. The obvious thing for me to do at this point is to duplicate the work I just did. Not exactly, because I don't have a record of exactly what it looked like, but to roughly duplicate the work that I just did. Am I going to roughly duplicate the work that I just did, or am I going to do something different? That's a good question. I'm going to start out trying to duplicate what I did, and then we'll see where it goes from there. What I'm also going to do, though, is I am actually going to make use, I think, of the water sheet, because I've had a thought. I was having the thought before the software crashed on me, but I hadn't decided whether to do anything about it yet. Let's go and do it now. So let's move this water here. We will move it to the water sheet, which should be over the top of the walls of the floors. This is a problem in that now I've got this section of floor that has vanished and no longer hides that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to move the other one first. And I am going to move this bit of floor. Currently I have the water selected as well, so I'll deselect the water. Right, and I'm going to put that on the floors mask level, floors mask sheet. It's not staying there permanently, but that's a sheet that is above the water, so I know I can find it again. And then I'm going to move the water to the water sheet. And now, the floors mask is weird. Why, when I moved it to that mask sheet, it became a funny color, I do not know. Because there's no effects on the mask sheet. So I don't know quite what's going on with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the floors sheet. I'm going to add a new one, which we will call floors. Let's just call it floors overlay for want of something to call it, because it's going to be over the top of the water. And we'll move it down to above the water. We'll copy the floor effects onto floors overlay, and then we will move our weirdly now miscolored bit of floor there. Again, that selected the water as well, so we'll combine not the water, and we'll move it to floors overlay. Weirdly, when I moved it, it changed its color like that. That is really strange. So what it seems to have done is change its texture. So I will once again, not the water, thank you, just the other one, and it's moved it to grass and dirt, possibly. That looks like it has selected grass and dirt 1. What I want is dirt, dark brown, symbol set 2B, put it back how it used to be, and there's a bit of an overlap issue over here that I need to fix with a little bit of node editing. But otherwise, that has solved my problem. So, node edit. Rather than deleting any nodes, I think I'm just going to move the nodes to underneath there where I want them. Actually, we'll delete a couple of them and move the others in where I want them. Yeah, that should solve that overlap problem there. However, we've still got one down at the other side that I need to fix, but that's again not going to be difficult. To just do a little bit of node editing over here. Move these up. Check which direction I'm moving nodes in. Let's move to there. Delete a couple of nodes. Make sure that's in the middle. And then there's that overlap dealt with again. There we go. So the reason that I wanted to move that to the water sheet is so I can mess about with water. I want to add some effects to the water. So what do I want to add with water? I'm thinking I want an inverse bezel effectively. I'm not quite sure how I would do that, but let's see whether we can come up with something. I might just try an inner glow to begin with and see if I can make something work using an inner glow, because I kind of want to try and give the impression that the water is a lower level obviously than the rock around it, so that it makes sense that you go down into water, you don't go up into water usually. So we'll give that a 5 foot blur size, brightness of, we'll go 80% initially, and we'll just see if that's going to give us anything remotely useful. All the effects have turned off at the moment. Let's just apply these. There we go. Right, so right now that's not doing us anything. I've just noticed I've messed up that bit of wall over there somehow. I'm going to have to try and fix that. It looks like it's no longer on the right sheet, maybe because the effects aren't hitting it. I might have accidentally moved it along with the floor, but I can fix that easily enough. In fact, I'm going to fix that now and then come back to messing with the water. So we want to select that. That's selected 2 entities. I want to not do anything with that entity, which is the water. And the other entity definitely wants to be on walls. So we'll move that to the walls, redraw, and yeah, we've got our wall back properly now. Because that just went a bit weird. I accidentally moved it onto the, I may have moved it to the waters sheet, I think. Accidentally, when I selected the water, I clicked up there. So, speaking of the water sheet, now the floors have got a glow. And their glow is an inside glow, 12.5% for map units. So maybe that's more what I should be using. We're going to copy that to water, paste it, get rid of the inner glow that I had done, and I'll just mess with that because that already is working fine for the wall, for the floors. So maybe I can just edit it to make it work fine for the water as well. Let's put it at 6 and 25%, so it's stronger than it is on the floors, on the water. And see what that gives me. Well, that does give me more of an impression of depth on the water, but it's too much. So let's split the difference. Let's go 5 and 20 and see what that looks like. I quite like 5 and 20. I think I'm going to keep it with that. So now we've got a little bit more of an impression of depth on the water on there, which I think looks quite good. And I can do the same thing on the other water in the map over here, because again I need to change this water now to match the water over there. Probably make the same decisions I did last time about what I do and don't want to changing. So we'll hide the walls. We'll move this bit to, but we'll move both. Cancel that. Repeat the thing, and so for starters, we are going to move both of the water selections to the water sheet. Okay, then we are going to retexturize one of them. So we just want to be using this one here. That's getting the deeper, darker water texture, like so. And we are also going to move it to the back because at the moment it looks like it's moved itself above the lighter water when I moved them. So let's bring the walls back in to see how that looks. Yeah, that's looking fine. We'll save it. Again, we've got a better impression of depth on the water now with that that different glow effect, that new glow effect. And again, we've got the lighter water here in the constructed section, which means that I need to put my my wall torches back in. So I also know that I moved my torches. I moved them to I think I moved them to behind the walls, didn't I? Was where I put them, and I added a glow to them, which I gave a sort of a nice yellowy glow, and I gave it, I think I gave it 50% strength with a blur radius of 10 feet. So let's set that up, and if it looks wrong I can come back and change it afterwards. But to begin with, we want to be on the symbols torches sheet, and we want to find our lighted sconces. Turn the snap on. Oh yeah, that's... Well, I'll turn the snap off then. Obviously didn't use the snap last time because it's snapping to places I don't want it to be. I just lined it up manually last time, didn't I? So we'll do that again this time. I re-drill that. We've got our sheet effects in there okay, and that's looking how we had it before pretty much, and we're pretty happy with it. So we'll save that because we don't want the software to mess us around again. I am going to draw the cave back in, but I think what I'm going to do this time, having decided that that cave is going to connect to a sectioned off portion of the map, which currently has no access, you'll notice, because this bit of corridor here actually just ends at a wall at the bottom. So I'll probably put another secret door in over here. Did I have drawn my secret? Yes, I've drawn my secret doors. Good. It's just something I wanted to check whether that had been, you know, when I did them after the losses. You know, I'm going to copy, because this is going to be considerably easier. I'm just going to copy one of the S's from there, and I'm going to put it there. So I know it's it's the same as the ones over there, and B, it's on the same sheet as the ones over there, because all I've done is just copy it, and when I copy a thing, it copies it to the same place. You know, copies it within the same sheet. So I want to rotate it though, because again, I want it to line up with the wall. I don't like the S's across the wall like that. I like them to run along the wall, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't, but I know what I mean. So 90-degree rotation, like so. Yeah, I far prefer the S to be in line with the wall rather than perpendicular to it when I'm doing this stuff. It's just me. Your mileage may vary. Let's hide the floors again, so that I can once again node edit this wall, bring it down to here. And right, now this is where it went wrong last time, when I tried to insert a new wall. So instead, a new node. So instead, I'm actually going to take it all the way down to there, and I'm going to draw a completely new wall. And I'm going to start my wall at that truncated bit of wall, and I'm going to bring it round the corner then. And then up here, I'm going to draw in my bit of wall going that way. And now I've got a wall that makes sense, and all I need to do is unhide the floors so that I can put in some floor that also makes sense. These floors were flagstones, so we'll use the flagstone again, and we will just do this square here to finish up the corridor. That works fine to me. So now we've got a secret door in this room, and ironically the secret door leading into the bit of the dungeon that you're probably here to get to is right off the entrance chamber. So all of the rest of that exploration is unnecessary if you can find and get through the secret door. But what I'm going to do is that secret door is just going to be challenge 1. If you get through the secret door, I am going to put in, up to the GM who's running the map, but in my head as I'm drawing it, that secret door then leads to a door you still can't get through, but you can ascertain that that's where you need to be. Maybe there's a way from the other direction. We'll have to go and explore the rest of the dungeon. The horror. So let's put this chamber in over here. What floor do we want? I think we want marble. Let's look at our mid-range red marble floor, shall we? And we will put it in here, fair sized chamber of this red marble floor. I put that node in the wrong place. That was meant to be there. There we go. And we'll give it a wall. Again, we will give it, actually we're going to give it a stone wall from here, I think. Just because I'm determined to really emphasize the differences on this chamber. That is this important place we're actually coming here looking for, really. Unfortunately, I've made a mistake. And I'll show you why. So what I was saying about you before, about you start walls in the middle of a straight section, not on a corner. Because otherwise, that happens on your corner. And if I'm changing wall here, there's nothing really I can do about that. So, the answer is not to change walls here. The answer is instead to node edit this back to here. Node edit that back to there. Node edit that to there. And this one I'm going to bring down to here, because that way I can select a new stone wall and have it run up to just fill in this corner section. Or I can actually mess that up and not click when I thought I had. But it's an easy fix. There we go. Now we put the floors back in. And I'm going to want to change that as well, because at the moment, obviously, my floor changes in the wrong place. So again, we'll node edit this. And we'll just move that back to there. And to there. Then we can get another bit of marble floor. Everything works. Bring the walls back in. And at this point, I don't have my door yet. My door, however, comes in quite nicely. But I don't want to use that door. I'm going to undo that door. And I'm going to change to my wall symbols sheet because that's where I'm putting doors. So make sure that I'm putting the symbol in on the right sheet. And then I'm going to look for this clearly metal door. Put that one in there. There we go. So now I've got this secret door leading round to a big ass double door made of metal, which in my version of this dungeon at least is sealed and the player characters can't get through it. But there'll be another way into this chamber, and that other way will come in through the cave over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the rest of the complex here leading to where that cave attaches, rather than draw from the cave. I'm going to draw from the complex. So we'll go back to our flagstone floors, and we'll have a corridor running out from the flagstone, from the back of the chamber, and running up that way. Put a brick wall around it. We're back to brick because we're outside of that chamber. That chamber is where we had brick, so outside of the chamber we don't want brick. We don't want stone even. But not what I meant to do. But at the moment the stone is underneath the brick and I want the stone to be on top of the brick, so we will just use move to front. We're selecting too many things there, but what we're not selecting is the wall that we want to move in front of, so we don't really care about the order of anything else there. It should work fine. There we go. Just have a normal door in this section of wall here. So there we've got our sneaky way out, or sneaky way in, to this chamber up at the back here. Leads into this corridor. I put it in the wrong place. I should have put it one further down to make sense of the back end of the corridor, but I can do something with that. Maybe I'll put a feature in there. What have we got in the way of furniture? Yeah, maybe room for a brazier down there. What else have we got if I don't want to use a brazier? We've got... well, I'm not going to put a stone there. That's fairly obvious. I'm going to put a wooden table. That wouldn't really be in keeping, I think, with the feel of this, nor with a desk. I think, to be honest, looking at these, either a bookcase or the brazier are the way to go. Maybe bookcase. How big is this bookcase? Yeah, that doesn't work too badly. I'll turn the snap off because I don't want it to be merged with the wall. I want it to be actually in here by the wall. Let's put a bookcase there. I've accidentally put that bookcase on the symbols wall sheet, which is not where it wants to be, so I will select it and move it to symbols. Then while I'm putting in symbols rather than wall symbols, I will also move myself to the symbols sheet to be sure that anything I place goes there. And we'll zoom in a bit and look at this, see what else we might have. I could really do with, well, we've got candelabras. That would probably do. Maybe if I place a candelabra either side of the bookcase. But I don't really want it to be lit, do I? So I picked the wrong candelabra up. I want... have we got a candelabra not lit on here? Oh, come on. Are you seriously telling me you didn't give me an unlit candelabra? That's disappointing. I really wanted to put an unlit candelabra. What is that? What is that? That set of scales or something. Not sure. Well, let's look and see what we've got in some of the other sections of our symbols. We've got some columns and altars and idols and things on there. None of them really feel right. What do we got in our wizard section? Fountains, lava, wells. Lava pool's interesting possibility, but not too close to the books, perhaps. What about our container section? What have we got there? Barrels, treasure, clothing. Nothing that really fits my feel. Though it might be fun to take that set of goggles and place them on top of the bookcase, just for the hell of it. What have we got under debris? I don't really think debris is what I want here, but we'll see if there's anything good in debris. And the answer is not. No, there isn't anything that... something might have leapt out and said, well, maybe, I know that's not what you were thinking of, but perhaps you could do this, but nothing did. What have we got in the vegetation? We've only got trees and bushes. There's not going to be a tree or bush in here, is there? That's not going to make any sense. Not going to be a staircase there or a trapdoor. Not really going to be a cave thing, I wouldn't have thought. No. I guess, then, we're kind of coming back to our candelabra, maybe. But I don't want the lit candelabra. That is the only one we've got in our selection. So maybe instead I'll use the unlit brazier and I'll shrink it. What if I put it to half size? Will it fit either side of the, one either side of the bookcase at half size? And the answer seems to be yes, it will. So now we've got, actually, before I do that, I want to set it back to normal so I don't forget that I've rescaled my things. Then I'll finish. So now there is, yes, the corridor runs past the door where it doesn't need to go, but that's given room for a bookcase and some sort of a small ceremonial brazier either side of the bookcase. Kind of implies that the big marble floored space is a ritual area, and perhaps the priests or whoever are conducting the rituals are coming in through this corridor, and they've got all their holy texts or what have you here. The brazier that they can read the holy text by, and or light incense burners or whatever they may need for their ritual before they come in through this door, probably behind something that obscures them from people who come in the other direction. So if we think of this as a temple, they're probably going to come in here but be concealed from the rest of the room. So that implies that I should either put curtains or another wall. We've got some curtains here, got curtain symbols. So I could put, theoretically, I could put a row of curtains hiding the back of the room, like that. So now priests coming through the door come into this narrow space behind the curtains, and then they come out either side of the curtains, or indeed perhaps just push the curtains aside and come through after moving into the middle if they don't want to go around the sides. But either way, it lets them gives them a bit of not secrecy so much as dignity, that they don't have to be seen walking through doors and banging their head like a stormtrooper. That also implies that if this is some sort of a ritual chamber, maybe we should give it an altar. What have we got in the way of altars? Do we want to give it an evil altar? Do we want to give it a good altar? I think we want to give it a fairly generic altar, because we don't know what the dungeon's going to be used for in any given adventure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it this interesting structure here in the middle of the room of 3 altars, but leave them undecorated plain altars so that GMs can decide for themselves what they're doing. Ooh, bars. Bars might be interesting. I like this idea. I like this idea. So, what we've got now, that drop shadow doesn't really work for the bars, does it? But I might have to do something about them. Might have to put them on a different sheet with a slightly different effect. So what we've got now, if you've ever been in a church more likely to be a cathedral church with this kind of feature, where there is a section that is caged off almost at the back of the church. We've got that kind of arrangement here now. So we've got these 2 stone altars, and then between the altars and to the side of the altars, we have got bars running floor to ceiling, separating the priests at that end from the congregation at the front. For our player characters coming through the back door because they couldn't get the door open the front way, that's not going to be a problem. They'll climb over the altar or bend the bars out of the way. So it's not going to be an issue for them. But in normal use, back whenever this was in use, doing whatever it was doing, the congregation couldn't get to the priest at the rear altar doing whatever he was doing. But if there are ceremonies that involve interaction with the congregation, such as, for example, giving a Catholic Mass, say, that can be done across those altars. Those altars can essentially work like counters now. They're shop counters that, whatever they're doing it across that altar, with the altar between them and the priests, but they're kind of accessible. So I want to go back to my furniture now because I want some benches or pews. I think there were pews in here. I'm sure I saw pews. Yeah, pews. So yeah, those pews unfortunately are going to be a bit awkward because I want to put a double row of pews in, but that kind of fills the whole space. It's really cramped there. I don't like that. Oh, strangely, I removed one of them, but not the others. I'll have to delete them manually. I was hoping it would delete all of the last places when I undid, but it just literally did the last thing. Maybe I could have undone further to go back. But so what if we went with the benches instead? The benches are smaller. The benches do give us a little bit more room to work with. So let's put some wooden benches in there. And maybe, were they in the clerical thing, the curtains, or were they in just the furniture? I think they were in possibly just the furniture. No, we've got curtains in here as well. What's the other curtain? Yeah, that's more like it. Now I want the that's all well and good, but I want the supports, the posts that the curtains are hung from back at the end here for this, I feel. Although, I could do if I make this slightly bigger so that it hits the walls. What if I just say 1.1? Is that right? Yeah, so it actually runs wall to wall. So we've got our double doors, and then inside the double doors we've got our curtain. And that curtain technically should really be a wall symbol. Should I put that on the wall symbol sheet or just leave it on the standard symbols sheet? I'll leave it on the standard symbols sheet, I think. So we've got our double doors, and then inside the double doors we've still got a curtain. So there's a lot of obfuscation going on in this little temple. It's only small, can't hold a big congregation, so implies maybe a secret cult of some kind that isn't going to have a lot of members. Certainly not a major temple for the bulk of the population to be messing around with. So we've got that there. It makes sense as a secret cult type of organisation because you're coming through a secret door to get to it, and then you get to the proper double doors that are the big entrance, and then behind the big entrance you've got to go through a curtain to get into the actual room. So maybe whatever rituals are performed here are done in small numbers, and as one group is ushered out, the next is waiting to come in, and even if the doors are left open, they can't see past the curtain even if they creep up to the corner. All kinds of possibilities as to what could have been going on in this place. Just generated by the map and what we've chosen to put on the map pretty arbitrarily, to be honest. don't want to repeat the last command. I just hit the wrong key. So I've got room for more of my dungeon facility up here. So let's go with our flagstone floor again, and we will start there. And we're going to use the same technique here that we used for our cave. Just put that in the wrong place, but that's okay. I'll finish there and then node edit to move it to line up with the one at the bottom. That's where it wanted to be. There we go. Then we'll take our brick wall and we will put our brick wall initially. We'll put an outside wall around this area. Then we'll put some interior walls to divide it up into rooms. So similar technique to what we did with the cave that I'm going to redo with the cave when I've done with this. Draw a large area and fill it rather than draw lots of small areas. It has the same effect at the end of the day. I'm just drawing in walls now rather than rooms. That's the difference. So let's have our corridor open into a room, and then we're gonna divide up this part of the dungeon into more rooms, like so. I think I'm going to divide that into 2 small rooms. And I'm going to divide up again over here. Let's have a line, a wall running all the way north to south, and then divide it into a number of rooms. Let's just have 3 rooms on this side. I clicked that in the wrong place, didn't I? No, I didn't. I got it in the right place. Cool. So I can put some doors to start opening ways through into these, and I think it might be fun at this point to do something a little bit weird. And the slightly weird thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to undo that, and I'm going to start it again correctly. So I start in the middle at the top. And what I've now got is that coming from either set of rooms, you're coming into a corridor that runs around the outside of this middle section. And I'll give the middle section, I'll divide that up into 3 rooms as well. And just hit the wrong tool there. So we'll have 15 feet of room on that end, 15 feet of room on that end, and a bigger room in the middle. Now we need some doors. Well, we need to save just in case this goes horribly wrong. Then we need some doors. And this is obviously this must be the living quarters and administrational area for the priests, whereas everything that we've found down on the other end is front end. It's a reception, front of house. So let's have some doors in here. We'll just have some ordinary wooden doors, and we'll put one there. We'll put one there. We'll put one there. We'll put one there. 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 And one there. And they're all in the wrong place, those doors. They're all on the symbols sheet, so I need to move them all, because I forgot to change to, of course, they all want to be wall symbols, because that's what we're putting doors on. So we'll select each of these doors one at a time, trying to be careful not to accidentally select a wall. And we will move them all to symbols wall. There we go. We've now got our little complex over there. Other than the church, temple, whatever, you'll notice that I'm not putting furniture in these rooms particularly, apart from the, I've got the altars and the benches and the bookcase and braziers outside the church. The reason for that is because that makes the map more versatile. Most VTTs will let you have some sort of mapping function if it's only that you add furniture as if it were a token in your VTT. you can add furniture within the virtual tabletop to a blank map like that, like this. Not only does that make this map more versatile, because it allows the GM to furnish the rooms however they want based on what they've decided they should be, but it also has some versatility in game, because if you've placed the furniture separately from the map, it does mean that you can theoretically unlock and move those graphical assets within the VTT if the players move things around. So if they say, oh, we'll put the bed up against the door, you can move that bed graphic and put it next to the door to do that, which is just an extra little level for GMs and players that want it in their game. So the only thing I've got left to do now on this map is I've got to redraw what I did over in the cave, with the cave over here. And that is not really a problem. Let's start, we had water at this end, let's put the water back in at this end. And we will use our dark blue curved for that. We will turn our snap off. And we will go from here, I think. We will curve out around past here. And we'll curve up. Let's have a little narrow walkway at this top end that lets you get a little bit further along before you run out of cave. Take it up to here. Then we're tracing the wall or the floor, whichever one we're tracing, and we're tracing it all the way around to this side. And once we've clicked on that, we should just be able to do that. And there we go, we've got wall there, we've got water there, but of course it may be in the wrong place, and also it needs to be behind this bit of dirt. Now, you may notice that what I've just done there was an absolute disaster, because it got rid of the water. That was not what I intended to do. I moved it to the back, and that was foolish. I didn't want to move it to the back. I wanted to move it to the water sheet first, and then move the bit of floor there. So what we'll do is we'll select our water, and we'll put it on the water sheet. Then I need to, this gets a little bit awkward at this point. So looking at the wall, that gives me an idea of where I want to be working, but I don't want to click on the wall itself. So I'm going to hide the wall, but I also know roughly where the thing that I'm looking for is, and I can use a bounding box to find it, like so. I just needed to cross enough of it to have it select. Then I can move that one item to the floors overlay sheet that I created specifically for this purpose, so it's over the top of the water. And then I can bring my wall back in, unhide it. There we go. And I'll put, I think I'll put a few more bits like this. Let's set myself on the floors overlay sheet, so then any floors that I draw will automatically draw on that sheet over the top of the water, which is of course how I want them. And we will come back to the floor dirt dark, and we'll just draw in a few more little bits of that. As you note, that's not what we want to be doing. Let's undo that. We want to do it from cave, of course, don't we? Cave dirt dark, which hopefully is still going to be drawing on the floors overlay, but we want the fractalization, so we do need to be using that specifically. And we'll give ourselves some, from one point of view these are rock pillars, from another point of view these are in fact just bits of solid rock where the water has not eroded through that portion. There's a couple of bits here that I'm going to want to change. That's way too pointy. It's going to cause absolute havoc. So let's move up to the other side of the pointy bit, and then I can just... Ah, no, it's deleting in the other direction. So I want to come down to this side and delete until the pointy bit goes away. That should do. There we go. I think we're going to do the same here, because I think that end looks too pointy. This is basically an alternative to fixing the wall after the fact. Is fix the floor beforehand so that the wall doesn't draw with the errors in. Over here I'm going to need to do it. Which way does that go? That's going in the right direction, so I can just delete a few times to get rid of that bit. That there might be a bit too pointy, but I'm just going to hope we're okay and just ignore that and go straight to giving ourselves a rock wall. In fact, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually draw a bit of rock wall around that so that it doesn't matter because I'm not tracing it then. Sneaky, sneaky. So I'm going to come to there. I got that almost right, almost but not quite. What has gone wrong with that? I was thinking I hadn't actually reached it, but I did, didn't I? I want to hide the floors overlay so that I can edit the wall here, and then node edit this bit of wall. Let's move it back to here. And can I F5 it to itself? Yeah, I think I can. It's kind of ugly, but nobody's going to notice if it's not zoomed in too far, so calling it good enough. There are a couple of places I want to clean up though. I want to clean up over here. So let's come up to there and then oops, okay, so the delete was running in the other direction to where I wanted it to go, and I just deleted in the wrong direction essentially, but that'll do with that bit. It's a weird bit up there as well that I want to try and figure out. It's probably these points here that are causing the trouble. Yeah, looks to be. And this corner has an issue as well, so we'll come in and do the same thing over here. And move up to here and delete just a few nodes. And hopefully that fixes that, and we can put the floor back in. There we go, that's looking okay. Still need walls around those other bits of rock, of course, but we're getting there. We are getting close to this being a finished map, and once it is a finished map, as I said, I will post it on my Ko-fi so that anybody who wants to use it for their own game can find it by just going to ko-fi.com fish not fish, and it will be there for your use however you want to use it. There's a few maps already on there. I did put some maps on there when I was doing Mappa Mondays before. Actually, no, I'm just gonna stop there, I think. Oh, I just did that with the wrong tool. Did I do the other one with? I did use wall block on the other one, didn't I? I hope so. Okay, so let's bring our wall around this awkward end manually. Just draw it ourselves rather than need to worry about the fractalization causing me trouble. Then we will trace, and we will trace from here round to here. And then try and clean this up. And obviously join the bits. No, I don't want to do that. Hide the floor, please. Right, node edit again. Being RC, so let's just pull it out and then put the floor back in so I can see where I need to draw the rest of this. Okay, I think actually I might be best just not trying to. So let's node edit the floor at this point. Side and start deleting nodes over there. Flatten out this bottom portion quite a bit, basically, so that then I can try to make the walls line up a little better. That should do. Now, unfortunately, that means I need to hide the floor again. Back to the node edit. Come on, find me a node. There we go. So I want that node to basically be there, which means that the node before it needs to be over here so that that lines up okay, like that. It's not great, but I'm going to call it good enough, because as I have said before, good enough is what this is all about. Perfection is not necessary, only good enough. So this one over here I can see being a complete pain in the ass. So I think what I'm going to do is, do we have an anti-fractalization? Can we smooth these out? I think there may be a tool for smoothing, but I can't remember where it is. It doesn't seem to be on the same. What does remove nodes do? I wonder. Select path. That path. Yep, that's it. Remove nodes. So by removing nodes as the opposite of fractalization, essentially, renders that a somewhat simpler shape, and thus easier for me to draw a wall round. Like so. And it's still not bad. Zoom in a bit more onto that one. And again, I think I am actually going to remove nodes on this, because I really don't like that sharp point there, and I'm hoping that if I move nodes it will go away. It didn't. I'm going to have to do that manually. Oh yeah, it did remove nodes, but there were a lot of nodes there in the first place. Right, that seems not unfair. Let's get our lock wall tool, pick a good starting point. Let's start here. Where we can sort of work our way around that edge. And then we'll trace to here. And there's our join point. No, that came out ugly, so we're going to have to hide the floor while I fix it. Zoom in further on it so I can see what I'm doing a bit better, and go to the node edit. Come on, there we go. Let's delete that node. Bring this node in a bit, that node in a bit. That node should theoretically now quite neatly line up. And then we want to do something similar with this bit. We've got a bit of overcomplication going on over here. That better. Back to that, bring it further up. Nope, nope, don't put it there because that interaction goes weird. Ooh, that has suddenly gone strange, hasn't it? Not happy with that. But it kind of hides once you zoom out, so again, we'll call it good enough. Perfect is not necessary. Perfect, as they say, is the enemy of good. Right, so there it is, a dungeon map. We have got, I lean out of the way of it slightly. We have got our underground complex accessed by a staircase. What that staircase connects to above is not part of this map, so therefore this can be slotted underneath anything that's got a staircase going down, whether it be a lower level of another dungeon or a higher level rather of a different dungeon, or a building. I mean, we've got like a little sort of a cult headquarters type of feel to this, to my mind. So it could be concealed beneath a more traditional church. Perhaps it's an evil cult masquerading as whatever the local religion normally is. You know, Yuz hiding underneath Palor or whatever. Then we've got our reception type area. From there we go into a little bit of cave, and then there's the weird little constructed section in the cave, which could be from a different era, or it could be still a part of this. Maybe it has something to do with a semi-monastic part of the cult, who are separate in their own little bit there. Then, you know, in my head, we've got the secret door leading you to the doors you can't get through, so you need to find a way to get into there, and we do that by swimming through. We haven't actually put that connection to that section yet. That's what I haven't done. I knew there was something I hadn't done. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to fix that now. I knew there was something. So yeah, I need to connect this bit of water. I haven't got my cave that connects that bit of water to this complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a broken wall, effectively. And I'm going to put the cave in first, then I'm going to break the wall. So let's have our default cave. And we will have our default cave run from here and we'll have it run round here and run down to about here, run this way a bit, and then we'll come back up this way and to there. Then we'll trace, because we actually do want to follow a straight line, and the fractal won't give us a straight line unless we trace along an existing one. Now I need a couple of breaks. So first break requires me to hide the floor, because I need to break this wall, and I'm going to break it from there to there. Apparently I'm not. Why did that not break? Let's try this again. Break starts here and here. Oh why, oh why, oh why are you doing this to me again? Let's see whether I can break it with a door, shall we? No, that's not registering that as a wall. It is a wall, very clearly a wall. Because... have I drawn all those doors at 1.1 size? Yep, I have. I'm not going to change them now. All the doors in that latter section are drawn slightly oversized. They're all 1.1 scale because I forgot to change the scale back after putting the curtain in. But I'm not going to change them now. It's going to be a feature, not a bug. So, I need to know why this wall is giving me grief. Because I want to break this wall, but all these walls register as walls. That wall registers as a wall. This bottom one along here doesn't. I actually need to put a door in there as well. I had no door into that section from the temple. Can't believe I missed that one too. What a fool. Let's move that up to the symbols walls sheet where it belongs, because I just placed it on regular symbols because I didn't have a symbol sheet selected. The way that works, by the way, if you don't have a symbol sheet selected, it will just put it on symbols. If you have a sheet with the word symbols at the beginning of its sheet name, it'll put it on your current sheet. So that's how that tool and other things do something similar. Where tools are designed to place an item on a specific sheet, it will either place it on the generic version of that sheet if you have nothing selected, or if you have a sheet with that name at the beginning, that tag at the beginning, so currently selected, it'll put it on the current sheet. So having done that, I wonder if now that's fixed that wall. I think the answer is probably no, because that's not the wall that I broke, is it? That's a different wall. So that still isn't showing as a wall. Can I do anything with that? That's interesting. Using the node edit and moving around takes me to there, then to there. Yep, but that is that wall, that node. Is that the right node? Yeah, okay. So if I move that node, oh, I want to turn snap back on there because I didn't snap it properly. So having moved that wall, it might now. Yeah, now it registers as a wall. So I'm going to put a door there. Then I'm going to do. It didn't cut it. You utter git. Registered it as a wall so that I could. Right, okay. If that's how we're going to play, we'll do it like this. We'll just move the end of the wall, put the floor back in so I can see where it interacts with the cave. And then we'll draw a new section of brick wall starting here, running out to there. Then we'll turn the snap off so that we can do a partial square. Then we're going to get kind of funky, and we're going to do that. So now our break in the wall is not a solid break. We've got a little break and then we've got a bigger break next to it with a bit of wall in between, which just gives it a little bit more naturalistic, to my mind, feel. I'm going to change my symbol sheet to symbols flat because I want to put some rock, basically debris, in here. Like that. Hopefully that will be underneath the wall when I redraw. Yep, so now we've got some rubble around where the wall collapsed. Should work nicely. I need to break this wall over here, so again I'm going to need to hide the floors, and I'm going to need to hide the water, so I don't break either of those, and I just want to break this corner section. So we'll use the break tool, and we will hope that it doesn't give me any grief. That didn't give me any grief. That broke absolutely fine, just how it was supposed to. So we can put, we can put our floors and our water back in, and then put in some rock wall as appropriate to make this work. So rock wall starting here, then tracing this from, that will be our first point, and our last point will be over here. If I can control where I'm looking at, mouse lag will let me. That'll do. I'll edit that end because it's ugly and horrible, but it got me roughly where I wanted to be to begin with, and obviously I will need to rearrange things over here. Once again, I'm breaking this wall. I'm going to break it from there down to, well, down to there. In fact, damn, that wasn't the wall, that was the floor. Hide the floor, fish, hide the floor. We've done this so many times, we know how it works. We know we have to hide the floor. Breaking that, we'll break it from here and we'll break it down to here. There we go. We will also set this wall at the bottom of the walls sheet, because it hides a lot of ugliness. Don't want to bring that back in just yet. I actually want to do some node editing over here first. So, right, first things first, which direction is my cursor moving when I delete? That way. Cool. So let's move up to where I want to delete from, and I want to delete from about there, and delete all these nodes that are underneath the brick wall. I could just keep my finger on the button and have it repeat and have it delete multiple nodes, but I don't want to overshoot and start deleting the opposite end of the wall, which will happen. It'll wrap round when I get to the end, so I just want to make sure that I don't delete too many nodes here. Should be the last one, maybe. If I move that point over to there, I think that was the last one, because that gave me a weird glitch. So I need to delete one more point by the looks of it. Ah, yeah, it's there, right. So that point needs to be deleted, and then that's the last one that I need to delete in this section. There we go. That's that done. Now we'll put the floors back in, because I want to be able to see the floors so that I can fill in this broken bit of wall down here where it doesn't exist, essentially. So we're back to selecting our rock wall tool. We will F5 to go to the end of that wall. We will not use trace because trace will cause us trouble. We will just manually come along here, and again we will F5 to connect to the end of that, and we will hope that that looks okay. As I zoom out, it becomes less problematic. I think I probably want to trim this wall back down, don't I? So let's hide the water. And then I should be able to select that wall without selecting the wrong things. Yep, good. And then we'll move this node up to there so that it connects okay with that. I'm going to zoom in a bit further and neaten that. No, actually I don't need to neaten that connection. I think that looks fine. So we'll show all of our things again. So now we can see, no, that's not quite right, is it? It's almost but not quite. I was relying on a wall to hide that overlap. So now I need to fix that by moving some points on the cave grid. So we'll move that over to there. And you know what? I think I'm actually going to delete a bunch of nodes here probably. Smooth this out because it's going to be easier to match up if I smooth it out. So let's take this point to there. Then I'll move up here and delete a bunch of nodes. Because with that much fractalization, I'm not moving all those nodes. Far easier to delete a bunch of them and just have enough nodes, because there's going to be underneath the water. So I just need enough nodes to let it run under the water and everybody will be happy. So deleting a bunch of nodes. Until I'm in a position where it's doing what I want it to do. That there. That looks like it should now be right. Yeah, that's looking good. So we've got our little cave beachy thing there, running into a bit of cave that for some reason they bricked off. I'm not 100% happy with that. It's good enough though, and that's the important thing, is this good enough principle. It would look better if I had a section of pure rock wall there that had collapsed rather than just the brick wall, so that it looked like they didn't realize that if they dug a little bit further they would hit a natural cave and then later it has collapsed through. But that's work that I can't be bothered to do right now. I suppose I can actually do a little bit of it, because some of it is relatively easy. If I come into here, again I want move to back on that, because I want this wall to be behind that wall, and I don't care that I've moved the cave floor. back as well. Then I can take a cave option again, dirt dark cave, and I can put in a bit of cave running here like this, and maybe a bit of cave running here like this. I'll be deleting some nodes on that bit in a moment because it's obviously coming into the wrong place. But to make that really work, I've got to also put in rock wall around it to match with the rest of the map. So while I could do it relatively simply, it's still, once I got to the wall part, would be a bit faffy, and I'm not going to bother faffing about with that. But I thought I'd demonstrate how it could be done. So there we go. We're back to thinking we're finished again. So I think I did this at 250 by 200, but let's turn the snap on and do a quick measure and find out. So 250 feet, yeah, pretty sure it's 200 feet top to bottom. Yeah, I clicked over one too far there, so 200 by 250. So let's assume that we want to use 50 pixels per square on our VTT, which is pretty much standard for Roll20. I can't remember what other VTTs use. There's some simple maths here, of course. These are 5-foot squares. So 50 pixels per square is, of course, 10 per foot. So nice and simple. If I want this to work on the VTT at a reasonable scale, when I export it, I am therefore going to basically have to multiply the dimensions by 10 and do this at 2500 by 2000 as an export. So I can do that easily enough. I select File, Save As, and what I'm going to use is rectangular section JPEG. Because I only want the squares. I don't care about the frame on the outside, which will otherwise export as well. So rectangular section JPEG. I'll change my options on this, and I will set it to my required numbers of 2500 by 2000. Most of these settings can be left as they are. Crop image to aspect ratio, restrict image to map border. Isn't really relevant in this instance, but is a useful feature because it means that if you've got something overlapping the border, it's not going to export that section. It just stops at the map border. So 2500 by 2000, we can leave everything else as it is, and we will export it with just this name, Stream Map August 11. It's actually 11, of course, and 18. Now, hit save, and then, because it's a rectangular section, I've got to tell it which bit I want to export. So I'm going to export just corner to corner for the whole map. And off it goes, rendering that image. Junk. Rendering a bunch of sheets. And when it's done, there is the exported map, ready to be imported into my VTT of choice, or uploaded to Coffee, as I am planning on doing. I'll need a second export without the secret doors marked, obviously, and I'll do that off stream and post both of them to my Coffee page so people can see it. And there we go. There, we've actually gone through the whole process of creating a dungeon over those 2 sessions, talking about how we go about designing dungeons. There's so much more that we could say about that, but talking a bit about how we go about designing dungeons, talking a bit about techniques for mapping dungeons, then starting to map a dungeon, creating one, an impromptu, ad-libbed, improvised dungeon, if you will, just drawing according to whim over the course of the latter part of last week's stream and today's stream. And at the end of the day, we've come up with this rather neat little dungeon map. Rough guess, depending on how much you actually put into it, 2 to 4 sessions play on a dungeon like that. But probably quite reusable. You know, you can run different adventures for different groups using that same dungeon, and I think not a bad piece of work. So there you go. Thank you for being here. I'm getting. I said this at the top of the stream, but I'll say it again now. I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking that I will probably pretty soon stop doing this dual streaming thing and put all my tabletop content onto Leashing Barguests. So anybody who isn't following Leashing Barguests, make sure to be doing so, because the Mappa Monday streams will disappear from Fish Not Fish fairly soon. When that happens, in order to justify the existence of Fish Not Fish, I need to get back to finding time to actually making myself hit the go button basically and stream what I'm playing rather than just playing games off stream. I used to do that. There was a point back when I was streaming before where if I was playing a game, I almost always hit the go button and did it on stream, and I got so out of the habit of doing that. But it's a habit I need to get back into. So probably Imperium Galactic Survival and X4 Foundations are the things I'm most likely to stream. But I'm trying to get back into Elite Dangerous, so maybe Elite Dangerous as well. That'll be on Fish Not Fish. Tabletop content. Want to produce more tabletop content on Leashing Barguests. Certainly will be trying to continue to do Mappa Mondays on a Monday, obviously. Don't know quite why I had an issue with that. Just noticed the time and the fact that I didn't get any notifications for Drut having started, so I don't know whether Drut has a stream on this evening, but I won't obviously be raiding her or anything because she's not live at the moment. So I'm going to call that a day. Thank you for being here. I hope you will be here next time I stream. And in the meantime, may your dice be hot and your characters cool.
1, 2, 3, 4. Whoa. Whoa. The fire's getting stronger. Whoa.